Now let's go to Ross Feingold. He's an Asia political risk analyst and joins us from Taipei. Good to have you on the show, Ross. First of all, your reaction to the violence we're seeing. It's now the second day of violent demonstrations in Hong Kong.
Well, we see that the authorities are struggling to mollify the protesters, that there still remains a large gap between the expectations by the protesters for action by the government and what the government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and ultimately what the central government in Beijing is willing to do. The protesters want the extradition bill that was the source of the controversy to be withdrawn with a greater degree of finality than the Special Administrative Region government has offered. There are concerns about the investigation into police response and the police use of force across the several weeks of protests. And then the incident last Sunday, which got an enormous amount of international media coverage of protesters who were beaten. And we see that this pattern of what the government is offering and what the protesters' demands are has a very large gap, and they haven't been able to bridge that gap.
And given that large gap and the fact that this is now the 7th week of the demonstrations, how do you see this ending, Ross?
Well, something that's been getting a lot of attention is expectations that the central government, the government of the People's Republic of China, will make some kind of announcement or take a more public policy position in the coming days. So that's something that we'll be watching as the new week begins here in Asia. And they might offer something. What it will be, we don't know yet. People, of course, are demanding that the chief executive of the Special Administrative Region, Carrie Lam, resign. That's something in theory that the central government could do, but it would come with an enormous loss of face for the central government. So that's probably not their preferred option, but it's certainly a possibility. The other extreme is that they dig in and they say that we're not going to kill this bill with the finality that the protesters want. We have faith in the way that the Special Administrative Region and Carrie Lam has handled these events. And that's only going to inflame tensions more, and we would see protests continue. And there's also been an interesting trend in recent weeks of professional organizations, labor unions. There were flight attendants who gathered in the airport to protest. And that's another thing we'll be watching closely to see if other types of professional organizations also come together, whether it's to have a public protest or open letters that are signed by their members or increasingly prominent people. So the likelihood is greater of continued tension than it is of some kind of accommodation being reached between the two sides.
All right, Ross, great to get your perspective there. Ross Feingold, Asia political risk analyst, joining us there from Taipei. Thank you.